I was inexplicably brought into a novel world by the system. Only by successfully winning over the male lead could I return to the real world. Just as I was about to take the final step and offer myself to him, the system informed me that I had targeted the wrong person. Seeing the progress bar stuck at 99%, I decided to take a chance and spend the night with Ethan. The lights were dim, and the atmosphere was intimate.
Emily, will you stay with me forever?
Ethan intertwined his fingers with mine tightly. His warm breath brushed against my ear and neck.
Yes, I will.
His hands roamed over my body, and his breath became increasingly uneven. My heart raced, feeling as if a fire in his chest was about to consume me.
Host, stop immediately. You've targeted the wrong person.
What did you say?
Host, the system had a bug and mistakenly identified the second male lead as the main lead. The bug was just fixed. The main lead is your boss, James.
This unreliable system.
Ethan, wait a moment. I think my time of the month just started. My stomach hurts.
Emily, are you okay? I'll get you some brown sugar water.
I'm fine, but tonight.
Ethan hugged me, rubbing my stomach.
As long as you're not in pain.
And so, we held each other and slept through the night. I watched James outline the work plan during the meeting, recalling what the system had told me last night.
Emma, you'll lead this project.
I was momentarily stunned, pulling myself back from my thoughts, and quickly responded.
Yes, Mr. James.
I felt a sense of reluctance about changing my target for the mission. The system noticed my thoughts.
Host, remember, this is a fictional world. Don't get too attached. Don't forget, your brother is still waiting for you.
That's right, Lucas is still waiting for me. Lucas and I were both abandoned children, growing up together in an orphanage, relying on each other. I finally got a job to support Lucas through college, but fate played a cruel joke on us. He was diagnosed with a severe illness, his life hanging by a thread. At that moment, the system found me, promising to save Lucas if I completed its mission. So, I couldn't let my personal feelings jeopardize my brother, who had been my only family. The office was completely silent, leaving only James and me.
Mr. James, it's 8 p.m. now. I'm going to grab something to eat. Would you like anything?
No, I'm not hungry.
I nodded and left. It seems he won't be easy to win over. My phone rang, it was Ethan calling. I glanced at James, who was still working, and stepped outside to take the call.
Emily, when do you get off work? I'm downstairs at your office.
I looked out the window and saw Ethan standing under the streetlight, talking on the phone with me. I knew it was time to have a clear conversation with him.
I'll be down in a minute.
The young man had a messenger bag slung over his shoulder, black headphones wrapped around his ears, and his neatly buttoned shirt collar open, revealing his fair collarbone.
Did your debate competition end?
Yeah, it's over. We got first place, Emily.
Ethan naturally came over and hugged me.
Let's find an opportunity to talk during dinner. Cheers!
She raised her glass and clinked it with his, gathering her thoughts.
Ethan, we've been dating for 3 months now. I know you're great, but I'm 4 years older than you. I work, you study. There will always be a gap between us.
Ethan looked bewildered, unable to process her words.
Emily, you're joking, right?
Emily's heart felt like it was being squeezed, a dull ache spreading through her chest.
I'm sorry, but this is goodbye for us.
She prepared to leave the restaurant, but Ethan grabbed her wrist, his voice hoarse and desperate.
Don't go, Emily. You just promised me yesterday that we'd always be together. I can change anything you don't like.
Emily shook off his hand decisively, her resolve firm.
Forget about me. We're not right for each other.
Emily tried to convince herself that this was just a game. She blocked and deleted all contact information related to Ethan. She even started making a detailed plan on how to win over James.
According to the system, he, like me, grew up in an orphanage without parents. People who grow up in orphanages often have indifferent emotions and solitary personalities, so my task was to be the one who could warm his heart.
Daily acts of kindness, always remembering his preferences.
Phew.
She lay like a puddle of mud on the grass, her mind blank. All she wanted at that moment was to lie in bed and sleep.
Doesn't James ever get tired? A while ago, I could barely keep up with him for a 5-kilometer run. Today, he ran 10 kilometers, getting faster and faster.
It was clear he didn't want her running with him. At that moment, Ethan's face appeared before her, and she was stunned. After a month of separation, Emily saw Ethan again. He looked thinner, his face unnaturally pale.
Ethan.
She slowly stood up, unsure of how to face him.
You've abandoned me. You've fallen for your boss, James, haven't you?
Emily nervously clenched her fists. Emotions swirled in Ethan's eyes, eventually turning into a cold laugh.
During this time, I've seen you running with him every day, eating together, even remembering all his preferences to please him.
You were following me.
I just missed you so much that I could only watch you from afar every day, afraid to disturb you, afraid you'd be annoyed.
He shouted hoarsely, gripping Emily's arms tightly, veins bulging on his forearms.
But what did I see? I saw you smiling and laughing with James.
Let her go.
James suddenly pulled Emily into his arms. His broad chest was a clear sign of his presence. He actually touched her.
Since she has broken up with you, she has the right to choose someone else. Please don't bother her again.
With that, he pulled Emily away. Ethan stood there, frozen, staring at their departing figures. The next day, Emma stood before Mr. James, her face stiff with a forced smile.
Thank you, Mr. James.
James's calm and deep eyes fell on her.
Emma, you don't really like me, do you?
What do you want from me?
Emma decided to admit her intentions openly.
I want your heart. Will you give it to me?
James was genuinely surprised by her reason, feeling a bit bewildered. Emma walked towards him, slightly tiptoeing, and leaned close to his face. They were only a few centimeters apart, and she looked into his calm, unruffled eyes.
I want to see what the composed and self-controlled Mr. James would be like if he went crazy for love.
Too bad you won't get that chance. I warn you, don't try to provoke me. I'm not as easy to deal with as that little kid.
Feeling down, Emily decided to go to a bar with her colleagues that evening. Unexpectedly, her tolerance was just as low as in her real life. One drink and she was out.
I stood in the middle of the stage, trying my best to keep my balance, not daring to make any movements. The after effects of the alcohol made it impossible to control my body, and I was on the verge of collapsing.
Just as she was about to fall, it felt like someone caught her, and then she lost consciousness. The next morning, Emily woke up in a large bed. The glaring sunlight made it hard to open her eyes.
I propped myself up, and the blanket slid off, revealing my bare body. Turning my head, I saw Ethan still sleeping beside me, his skin covered in countless kiss marks.
A chill ran through her, and her face turned pale. She had no memory of the previous night. Panicking, Emily quickly dressed and left the hotel. Just then, her phone rang. It was an unknown number, but her intuition told her it was Ethan.
I decided to answer.
Emily, why did you leave without waking me?
Last night, I was drunk.
Even though you were drunk, you kept calling my name. I know you still like me, right?
Ethan, no matter what, we can't be together.
There was a brief silence on the other end before Ethan slowly spoke again.
I won't give up on you. You can only be mine, Emma.
The next morning, Emily arrived at the office to an eerie silence.
What's going on? Why is it so quiet?
Mr. James was looking for you this morning, but you didn't show up. He's been in a bad mood since then. Now no one dares to make a sound, afraid of getting caught in the crossfire.
Emily was taken aback when she heard James's cold voice call out to her.
Emma, come in for a moment.
Emily frowned slightly, knocked on the door, and entered James's office.
Mr. James, you wanted to see me?
James, engrossed in reading a document, lifted his eyes and glanced at her indifferently.
Do you know the penalty for absenteeism?
Yes, it's a fine of $500. I'll go to the finance office and pay it later.
Emma, do all women love to lie, or is it just you?
Mr. James, what do you mean?
James put down the document, crossed his arms, and leaned back in his chair, staring at her coldly.
Yesterday, you said you wanted to pursue me. This morning, you were with another man. You're having quite the time.
It felt like time stopped at that moment, and the air around them seemed to freeze. Seeing his favorability score drop from 10 to 5, Emily could only curse inwardly.
Ethan, that guy.
When Emily returned home, she found Ethan waiting at the door. She felt a surge of anger.
Calmly, Ethan, come in. We need to talk.
As soon as they entered, Ethan enveloped Emily in a strong embrace. The words Emily was about to say were drowned in a kiss full of affection. Ethan's cool tongue slipped into her mouth, exploring every inch, forcefully searching every corner. Emily struggled, but Ethan's strong hand held her head, making it impossible to resist. After a long while, he finally stopped the lingering kiss on her lips.
Trembling, Emily, please, don't say things that will upset me, okay?
Emily felt her heart ache with guilt. For the sake of her mission, she had flirted with him, only to hurt him.
Softly, okay, I won't say it. I want to ask you, did you say something to Mr. James?
A hint of darkness flashed in Ethan's eyes, but he quickly nuzzled into her neck.
Whispering, he called to ask what you were doing, and I told him you weren't feeling well and were resting.
Emily knew he wasn't telling the whole truth, but she had no choice. Taking advantage of Ethan cooking dinner, Emily asked the system.
System, can I change the target to Ethan?
Coldly, no. It must be James.
Frustrated, but he's too difficult to win over.
Coldly, host, it's not that you find him difficult to win over, you just don't want to. Don't forget, your brother is still waiting for you.
That sentence again, always reminding her. As usual, I arrived at the office and knocked on James's door.
Come in.
Mr. James, your favorite black coffee, no sugar.
I placed the coffee on his desk and glanced at the affection progress bar above his head. I was instantly shocked.
What happened? Overnight, the affection level had increased tenfold.
I thought I was seeing things. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. It was still 50%.
Could it be that my complaints to the system yesterday were the reason?
James was holding an iPad, dealing with work. He slowly raised his head, his gaze indifferent as he looked at me.
Emma, I made a call to our partners in City A yesterday. This afternoon, you'll accompany me on a business trip to City A for a face-to-face meeting.
Ah. Okay.
I sent Ethan a text about the business trip to City A, telling him not to look for me during this period. Sitting on the high-speed train to City A, Emily felt quite helpless.
Why didn't he mention it yesterday? Now, there are no plane tickets available, and the train ride will take 4 hours.
She hadn't prepared any luggage. She booked the ticket and rushed to catch the train.
I can only complain inwardly, silently booking a hotel close to the meeting location.
Host, this is a great opportunity. Seize it.
She glanced at James, who was sitting next to her with his eyes closed, resting. Her heart was filled with resistance.
I can't bring myself to juggle 2 relationships, even in a fictional world. I can't get past this moral hurdle.
Host, if you don't proceed, I will take mandatory measures against you.
What measures?
You will lose control of your body until you agree to proceed.
She didn't believe it and chose to refuse. She thought the system was just bluffing. But the subsequent actions proved that she was still too naive. I saw myself burying my head in his neck, gently nuzzling him with my mouth, lightly biting his ear, and whispering softly,
James.
"Oh my, this is so embarrassing." At this moment, I felt like a puppet, being manipulated by the system.
Emma, what are you doing?
James, I've made it so obvious, can't you see?
I couldn't bear to watch any longer and quickly said to the system,
I was wrong, I'll follow the plan, just stop.
My body immediately returned to normal, and I quickly let go of James's arm. I lowered my head, too embarrassed to look at him, my face turning red at a visible speed.
Sorry, Mr. James, I was sleepwalking just now. When I sleepwalk, I do strange things. I'm really sorry for the trouble.
He tightly gripped my chin, forcing me to look up at him. His dark eyes were thoughtful, carrying an inscrutable depth that was hard to read.
Emma, I told you not to try to provoke me, but you just wouldn't listen. In that case, I hope you won't regret it.
James pulled me into the bathroom. He suddenly leaned down, his strong arms bracing against the wooden panel behind me, forming a confining posture. My heart skipped a beat, and before I could react, the overwhelming sensation of our lips and teeth meeting flooded my mind. I twisted my body in panic, but he wouldn't let me escape, his dominant and heated lips pressing deeper against mine. Then he bit down on my lip with an aggressive intensity.
Ouch.
Emma, from today on, you are my woman. I have a strong sense of possession and won't allow you to be with other men. Do you understand?
I was in a daze as he led me out of the train station, my mind spinning and chaotic. There was still some time before their meeting with the partners, so they decided to check into the hotel first.
One room is on the 12th floor and the other on the 7th.
I agreed, as per company policy, his room standard was higher than mine. Unexpectedly, James walked over and requested only the presidential suite on the 12th floor, canceling the other room.
Mr. James, the room on the 7th floor is mine.
Emma, you seem to have forgotten that we are in a relationship. Do you need me to remind you?
My spine stiffened, and I quickly waved my hand.
No, no need.
Let's go.
Seeing the big letters above his head showing a 95% favorability rating, I felt like crying.
System, you're too much.
He took me to the presidential suite. The room was spacious, with 2 bedrooms, 1 master and 1 secondary. I instinctively walked into the secondary bedroom, and James followed me in.
Mr. James, your room is over there.
Yes, I know. I might be discussing business with our partners until late tonight. Don't wait up for me, you should rest early.
Ah, do you not need me to go?
He leaned down and gently kissed the corner of my lips.
No, I don't want you to be in the spotlight. I'll go alone.
I silently breathed a sigh of relief. Things were moving too fast with him, and I wasn't ready to accept it yet. I stretched out on the sofa, closed my eyes, and enjoyed a moment of peace. Ding dong, the doorbell rang. It's only 9 o'clock. Could James be back already? I walked over to open the door and was stunned.
Ethan? What are you doing here?
You told me you were on a business trip. I missed you, so I came to find you.
How did you know I was here?
Ethan's eyes flickered, and he changed the subject.
You're on a business trip with James and staying in the same room?
I felt a pang of guilt under his questioning.
Well, let me explain.
Ethan pulled me into his arms, sweeping everything off the table with a single motion, trapping me between him and the table.
You're with me, so why are you getting entangled with James?
I looked at him, trying to stay calm. The anger in his eyes was unmistakable. I wanted to explain but didn't know how. He twirled a strand of my hair around his finger and inhaled its scent.
Emily, I want to hide you away so that you belong only to me for the rest of your life.
The next night, Ethan carried Emily to the bed, then slowly stood up, casually tossing his clothes on the floor, revealing his perfect 8-pack abs.
I couldn't help but swallow instinctively.
He turned over and pressed down on her, then gently kissed her earlobe. This teasing made her feel a bit sensitive. Again and again, seemingly insatiable, until the early morning. With a bang, the door was flung open. Emily's brain exploded. James was back.
I struggled to get up, but Ethan held me down, still moving rapidly inside me.
Emily, don't think about escaping. If he sees this, maybe he won't think about you anymore.
Whether he thinks about her or not, she didn't know. She just knew she was going to die of embarrassment. She tried hard to escape, but it was like an ant trying to shake a tree, futile. James heard the commotion, walked in, and turned on the light, seeing 2 bodies moving under the covers. His face twisted in fury, like an enraged lion. His usually stern face became even more terrifying with anger. Ethan couldn't dodge in time and turned his head to the side. The moment froze.
I was terrified, not daring to breathe, my heart pounding.
He seemed to lose all sense of reason and pain, laughing despite his injury. Then he provocatively spoke to James.
Old man, did you see that? Emily is mine.
Although James is 39 years older than Ethan, calling him old man was just asking for trouble. James's face turned extremely grim as he struggled to control his anger.
Emma, you're really fickle. We just confirmed our relationship this morning, and now you're in bed with someone else.
Ethan turned his head in disbelief to look at Emily.
Emily, he's lying, right?
James slowly smiled, his eyes gleaming with malice.
Whether I'm lying or not, you can ask Emma yourself.
He continued with a mocking tone.
TSK, it's a pity you didn't see it. Emma's lips are sweet and soft, her waist is slender and supple.
Ethan's face turned black instantly. He rushed forward and grabbed James by the collar. The tension between them was palpable, the atmosphere charged with hostility.
Stop it, both of you!
They were sitting on the sofa, glaring at each other. This won't do. I need to think of a solution. Since James needs to be the target and I can't separate from Ethan, maybe. I slowly closed my eyes, tears of guilt streaming down my face.
I'm sorry, both of you. I'm a terrible woman. I shouldn't have fallen for two different types of you. If you can't stand me, hit me, scold me, I'll take it. Or you can leave me.
Ethan immediately came over and hugged Emily.
No way! You can't leave me!
James pulled Emily into his arms, his face dark.
Don't even think about it.
Can you coexist peacefully?
Emily, I'd do anything for you. I just don't know if this old man is willing.
I can do it too.
Great! Perfectly resolved. James handed Emily a glass of milk.
Have some milk, Emily.
Emily woke up groggily, finding herself tied to the bed, spread eagle. Her head was foggy, probably from the milk James gave her last night. The door creaked open, and James walked in with breakfast, wearing a gentle smile.
Awake? Let's have breakfast.
What is this?
James brought the bread to her mouth, but she turned her head away, refusing to eat. Just then, Ethan entered the room.
Emily, you should eat something, or you won't have any energy later.
Ethan, James, why did you tie me up?
If we don't tie you up, what if you attract other men?
Emily, we can't stand the thought of anyone else having you. So, it's just the three of us, living together without any interruptions.
Emily hated being controlled by others the most. Yet, they trampled all over her boundaries.
I decided to focus on winning over James. Only then could I completely free myself from them.
During this period, they took turns watching her during the day and stayed with her at night. Besides losing her freedom and having all electronic devices confiscated, they treated her quite well, fulfilling all her requests. Today, it was James' turn to stay home with her. Seeing the progress bar stuck at 1%, Emily was at her wit's end. Despite her efforts, his affection level wouldn't rise. James was indeed cautious and aloof, unlike Ethan, who softened with a little coaxing. She needed a different strategy to win him over.
James, I've been cooped up at home for over 20 days. I'm going stir-crazy. Please, let me go outside.
James frowned slightly.
What's so great about outside? Don't you think being together is the happiest thing?
Of course, being with you is wonderful, but doing the same thing every day is so dull. I want to go on a romantic date with you.
Oh? What kind of date?
We could go to an amusement park, go shopping, watch a movie, or go to the beach, anything.
She looked at him with hopeful eyes.
I'm the first one to ask you out. If you don't agree, I'll ask Ethan tomorrow. Ethan would definitely agree. We used to go on dates all the time when we were dating.
A fleeting chill passed through James' eyes. He bit her lip hard.
This is your punishment, Emily. Don't try to provoke me. It won't work.
Emily put on a disappointed, hurt expression. Then James changed his tone.
But I do think we need a romantic date.
Emily hugged James joyfully.
Ah, James, you're the best. I love you, moi.
The next day, they decided to enjoy the most popular movie at the time.
I can't wait to see this film, Ethan.
Me neither, Emily. Let's get some popcorn.
After the movie, they shared Emily's favorite strawberry cream cake.
This cake never gets old. Thanks for sharing it with me.
Anything for you, Emily. Now, how about some shopping?
They went shopping and bought many clothes for both of them. By evening, they found themselves at the amusement park, riding the Ferris wheel.
Look at the view, James. It's beautiful from up here.
It really is. I'm glad we came.
James, do you know? There's a legend that if you kiss your lover when the Ferris wheel reaches its highest point, you'll be together forever.
You still believe in that superstition?
I do. So, will you stay with me forever?
A beautiful arc lit up the sky, making the night dazzling.
Always, Emily.
James stared at her, his eyes slightly teary. He suddenly pulled her into his arms and kissed her deeply as the Ferris wheel reached its peak.
James's affection level has reached 100%. Host, you may choose to return to the real world. 10-second countdown begins.
The system's mechanical voice echoed in Emily's mind. When the time to leave finally came, she felt reluctant. But she resolutely chose yes.
Emily!
James's eyes flew open, and he held her tightly, as if afraid she would leave.
I'm sorry, James. I deceived you. And please tell Ethan I'm sorry too. You both need to live well.
I slowly opened my eyes and looked around. Finally, I was back. Right, Lucas was still in the hospital. I quickly took a cab to find him. At that moment, he was still asleep, his brows furrowed in a painful expression, as if he was having a bad dream. Whoosh! Lucas suddenly opened his eyes and sat up.
Emily.
I leaned down and touched his head.
What did you dream about? You look so scared.
Lucas buried his head in my neck, a fleeting shadow passing through his eyes.
I dreamed you left me.
I chuckled and lightly tapped his forehead.
You, such a grown-up, still acting like a child. Aren't you embarrassed? All right, I'll call the doctor to check on you.
After a thorough examination, the doctor confirmed that the stomach cancer was gone. Only then did I finally feel relieved. The next day, Emily brought Lucas home and began tidying up his bed and clothes. Suddenly, she felt Lucas gently hugging her from behind.
Sis, do you remember what day it is tomorrow?
Emily stiffened at Lucas's intimate gesture. Ever since they returned from the hospital, he had been unusually close to her.
Oh, nothing.
Do you remember what I just asked you?
Of course, I know. It's your birthday tomorrow.
She hadn't realized Ethan and Lucas shared the same birthday. What a coincidence.
Sis, let's go to the amusement park tomorrow, ride the Ferris wheel, eat strawberry cake, and watch a movie. How about it?
Emily felt like she was missing something, a strange feeling she couldn't shake. She suddenly looked up at Lucas, her eyes wide open.
Do you know James and Ethan?
Lucas chuckled softly, his cold voice carrying a chilling edge.
Sister, you're quick to react. I was wondering when you'd figure it out.
Emily was incredulous.
Why?
Sister, do you know that I like you? I constantly think about being with you. But I was afraid that my feelings would burden you if you found out. So, I created a strategy and time travel software, hoping that through the strategy, you would take the initiative and gradually fall for me.
Emily couldn't accept that her brother, who grew up with her, harbored such feelings. Even more, she couldn't accept that everything was his setup.
Why did you pretend to be two people?
I wasn't pretending to be two people. I've always had two personalities. I was just hiding it. But I didn't expect that in that false world, I would become two people. Because the software system was still immature, it mistakenly identified Ethan as the main personality to target. It wasn't until the end that I realized and made some adjustments, allowing you to retarget.
All the doubts finally came to light. He was around the same age as Ethan, shared the same family background as James, and had many similar interests to both of them. It's a pity Emily didn't think more about it, she should have suspected it earlier. Lucas walked over and pulled Emily into his arms, gently patting her back.
Sis, I'm sorry. I know I shouldn't have lied to you, but I love you too much.
You deceived me, and I deceived you. Let's call it even, okay?
Emily pushed Lucas away forcefully.
Lucas, don't twist the facts. Even though you are all the same person, I like them for how they treated me. In that world, they didn't deceive or use me. I admit I deceived them, and that was wrong, but you, Lucas, you are the root cause of all this. But what about you? Why did you deceive me? For your own selfish desires. You didn't care if I would worry about you or if I would adapt to that environment. You dressed up your selfishness as something pure and noble, made your actions seem so heartfelt. Don't you find it ridiculous?
Lucas panicked. It was the first time he had seen Emily so angry.
I was wrong, sis. Please don't be mad at me, okay?
Emily's heart felt numb. She looked at him indifferently.
Give me some time. Let me calm down.
It had been half a year since Emily last spoke to Lucas. She had made it clear to him that she didn't want to see him. Every morning, Lucas would quietly place breakfast on the dining table and then leave without a word. During those challenging days each month, Emily would receive brown sugar water and warming patches from Lucas. In bad weather like wind and rain, he would text her to remind her to take an umbrella. Even though she hadn't seen him, Emily knew he was always there for her. His actions were undoubtedly touching, especially since Emily had feelings for him too.
If he appeared in front of me, I would choose to forgive him.
On her birthday, Lucas appeared in front of Emily with 520 roses and a birthday cake. He looked serene and noble, dressed in a light, slender dark coat, walking towards her unhurriedly. His deep gaze fixed on Emily.
Emily, happy birthday.
The end.